Montenegro podcast studio presents.
Hi. This is another episode of Neçemandanır, which can be translated as on suitcases, literally, but basically it's a podcast for immigrants, about immigrants, and people on the move. So technically, it could be translated as on the move. And here I am, Birkin, sitting with Alf.
Hi.
And we've got a little visitor.
Yeah.
His name is Letka, or Cat Letka. Get it? You probably don't, because you will not know Russian if you're going to watch this in English. Welcome back to Montenegro.
Yeah. Finally
Yeah.
back after half a year.
So when did you arrive?
Like some days ago.
Right. And you're
I
going
lost
to
track of time.
Yeah, and you're going to be leaving tomorrow.
Tomorrow or the day after.
Wow.
I'm kind of free.
So we kind of caught you on a good day when you're not on the move.
Yeah, when I don't have to drive, because it's quite a long distance back to the heartland of Europe.
Right. So where are you from originally?
Originally from, Germany.
Right. You didn't really say it with a tint of nostalgia, like Germany.
Yeah, I don't like Germany anymore.
Yeah.
I've given up on it.
But Germany hasn't given up on you, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, the tax agency hasn't. So.
They will remember you.
They will remember me for the rest of my life, as long as I'm a German citizen, I guess. So,
Technically, you could always, change that. And how do you feel about this?
if I would have a different citizenship, I would certainly think about it, especially if they do what they're talking about, going the American route of taxing by citizenship, then I would do that in a heartbeat.
I want to ask you about your experience of actually moving around and traveling in the world. So how long have you been on the move?
Quite a long time. I mean, on and off. I started hitchhiking in 2011.
Oh.
And I was hitchhiking through all of Europe, pretty much.
What gave you the idea of hitchhiking? That you could actually travel all around the world? Well, not paying the money and...
Yeah, I had this idea after I had a really bad breakup with a girlfriend. And then I just bought a train ticket, this interrail, through all of Europe. And I was taking all the way to Spain and walking on the Camino Santiago.
Wow.
And after that, I came back home and I thought, my travels are not over. And then I immediately packed my stuff back up and went up on the road and hitchhiked all the way to southern France and slept on the beach for a week or so, and then went back home.
I'm sort of sensing the Forrest Gump thing, like when he decided to run until the end of the street, then until the end of the city, and then he kept running. And that's what you're like.
That's kind of who I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm married now, so obviously I have to...
You've stopped running now?
I kind of did. Yeah, it's like, it's less running. I mean, I'm still behaving like that. I'm still free at heart, I guess.
Okay.
See.
But you're not hitchhiking.
I'm not hitchhiking anymore.
Right.
Sadly, I've grown out of it because I'm a little bit too old.
But no, it's very exciting because you've got your old camper van and you're living out of a camper van, right?
Right. That's what I'm doing, even at home, even in Germany. Living in a camper van right next to a university, and I go and study there. So
wow, it's very convenient, right? That's the next level of living out of a suitcase.
Convenient in terms of you don't have to rent an apartment, and you're really close to the place where you want to be. So that's the convenient part about it. There is also some inconvenient parts about it.
Like what?
Well, everything is limited. So when you're in an apartment, yeah, exactly. So you don't think you have, but in an apartment, you basically have unlimited space. So you can...
You haven't seen my flat, so...
Well...
Not exactly unlimited.
Well, okay, imagine a tiny home. This is basically a tiny home. So
I've got it.
you don't have that much space. So you need to keep everything in order, and you need to get used to the idea of putting everything away after you use it.
Right.
So if you leave everything where it is, which is kind of normal for people, just throw my
I'll do it later.
on the floor. You can't do that. Because if you do that, well, you don't have any space anymore. So, and
True.
you use the same table that you eat on, you need it for preparing food, and so you have to dual use a lot of things. So that's kind of why. So space is at a premium. The next thing is the same with electricity, for example. So you only have a certain amount of electricity. I have a huge solar array on it, but in winter that's not enough. So you're kind of dependent on the weather as well.
Right, makes sense. Which is why you're in Montenegro, where it's sunnier than in Germany, I guess.
Oh, that's not the main reason we're here.
I'm not.
I mean,
because you're here for the cats. Let's be honest.
Sure.
The Latka
And not
drew
for
you
people
in.
that we need here.
Do you remember how you came up with the idea of actually buying a camper van?
I didn't buy it per se. I inherited it.
Stole it ever since I've been on the move. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I inherited it from my parents pretty much.
Okay.
So,
were they travelers? Like
They
did like to
were-
explore the world.
I mean, they were just normal German people, I guess.
So every normal German family has a camper van.
No, just people who are kind of curious about
Okay.
this camping lifestyle, and I just
Right.
wanted. They didn't really like this traditional, all-inclusive kind of. They wanted to travel on their own. They wanted to explore a little bit. That's why they bought a camper van, and I just inherited it.
But you didn't sell the camper van,
I
even though you
didn't.
had an opportunity.
I had the opportunity to sell it. I didn't want to. I mean, at this time, campers were actually very high in price because it was this COVID times. And
Yes.
everyone wanted campers, and
Sure.
I had those kind of little cards on it several times. Like, call me, I want to buy your camper. No, I actually invested in it. I actually repaired pretty much everything. I put a huge solar array on top of it, and did a lot of electronic work on it myself. So it didn't have 220 before. It only had the 12-volt system. That's another thing. Like, if you are limited with 220 volts as well, so you don't have it all the time. You mostly use a 12-volt system. So what you can do, and what I do, if you're a little bit a tinkerer, then you just start converting everything to 12 volts. So a lot of things actually work with 12 volts, and they have a transformator in it, and you just cut the cable, and then you just convert it to 12 volt use. And there's DC-DC converters you can use for other things, like USB works on 5 volts, so you can use that to charge your phones. And
it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So how many countries have you been to in your camper van?
I mean, I have been to a lot of them, but just with my wife in the last years, we drove all the way to Turkey with it, like along all the Balkans. I think the last really big tour, I think that was 2 years ago. We started in Germany, went to the Czech Republic, and then through Hungary and Slovakia, then all the way through the Balkans to Turkey, and then we went over to Greece, spent like several months in Crete over the winter. It's really it's even warmer than here. It was December, and it was 20 degrees, so that was fairly nice. And then drove back, came by here, and
you fell in love with this place.
I fell in love with this place. It has
having over ever since.
Yeah, quite some benefits. It has. It's probably not the best in everything. It's I mean, it's kind of jack of all trades, I guess. But what it does have, and what's a huge plus, is it has a community where you can build something, and where you can trust people. So it's something that, if you consider staying somewhere for a longer time, then I think that's one of the most important things.
Nice. So if you're listening to this or watching this and considering moving somewhere, why not stay in Montenegro for a few days or a few months. If you hold a European passport, like Alf, yeah, just see for yourself. Maybe you'll like it. But yeah, the community here is really strong. But how does it compare to other countries that you've been to? You've mentioned Croatia, Hungary, Slovakia.
Yeah, well, it's, the first thing that you will notice is that people drive here like crazy.
Oh.
So, compared to other countries, I don't know where exactly it comes from. Like some countries it's calmer driving, some countries it's crazy driving. Maybe it has to do with mountains, maybe it has to do with culture. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Because
the relentless spirit of people living in the mountains, I guess. Yeah. Someone who would not, give in.
Right. But then there's other countries which are mountainous and they are not like that. So it's different in Bosnia, for example, which is also just as mountainous. And they drive very much more calm than they do here and in Serbia. So, yeah, I think it's a cultural thing, mostly. That's the first thing that you notice. There's also some small things you notice later, that the German world, it's unseen that supermarkets, for example, they don't need generators in Germany. Over here, they have generators. Because
every shop has a generator. Every supermarket big enough to know better. Especially in summer, you will need it.
Yeah, because if the power goes out, then all the produce spoils. And
absolutely, you don't want that.
You don't want that. So there is still more trust in the electricity grid. Except generally, it's a little lower trust society compared to Germany.
Right.
But that's changing there as well. Germany is really changing from a high trust society to a low trust society. And that is something that people like me who have traveled to other countries probably notice. So there's that. Every time I drive, I see that it progressively goes there. So you can see it, but people take less care about their houses and less care about appearances. And this is kind of the streets get worse, the driving gets worse, and that's kind of the slow progression. You don't notice it from one country to another, but if you move from Germany to Austria to Slovenia to Croatia, then to Bosnia, and then over here, then you kind of see a progression. So,
right.
As the gas prices go down, everything like the roads and the driving, that gets progressively worse. So
that's an interesting dependence, I guess. How can it be explained? When did it all start? Ever since the COVID, or was it like before that you noticed that Germany is kind of getting worse in terms of the standards?
Oh, a long time ago. I started to notice that in school. Back when I was in high school, I used to have discussions with this one girl. She was having dreadlocks and kind of was always this Green Party girl.
Okay.
And we liked each other personally, but we were completely on different sides politically.
Okay.
And the teachers at some point, they were annoyed that we were sitting next to each other and always loudly discussing politics.
But that's the whole point of discussing politics. Someone you are different from. No, like if you already know this person's position and if you kind of you're on the same page, why waste your time?
Oh, yeah, so it was always fairly interesting. At some point, I made some for her outrageous argument, something like taxation is theft, or
well, she won technically. And how do you feel about this? Like, do you feel you're gonna get back your country?
I don't think so. There is tremendous hope right now with, the essential victory of, or should I call it the victory of Musk or the victory of Trump, but I don't really know. But with Musk openly taking sides in the German election now, and there is tremendous hope, but that I have, as a libertarian, have to vote for the right-wing party, that kind of doesn't make me happy either. It's kind of
scary.
like, it's kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and this is kind of misbehavior.
And choosing between the two evils.
It won't change much. So what I hope for is this thing we call in Germany Sperrminorität. So it's like if one party gets enough votes, the other ones cannot change the constitution. So that is my hope, that it gets that high, that they don't get directly into government, because I don't want a right-wing government either. But they do get this blocking minority, that they can stop the left-wing people from raising taxes and changing the constitution, that they can take on more debt and this kind of.
It's much more difficult to actually change the government and the government's mind when they've set their mind on something. Let's talk about the Germans in Montenegro. There are lots of Germans living in Montenegro now. Are they here for the same reasons?
I heard from a lot of them that they went here because the taxes are lower. Another portion of them, they just went here because it's cheap and the weather is good. So,
but there are lots of countries like Spain and Portugal, like you don't even have to leave the EU, so it's safer there, right?
Yeah, but I think people who come to a country like this, they're more the adventurous type.
Oh, so all right.
For them, it's probably the
explorers.
Sure.
Yeah. You want to start something from scratch. You want to feel like the landowner, one of the Pilgrim Fathers who came to explore and just move the frontier further and further.
Right.
That kind of thing.
And also, it's probably again an affinity to the culture. So
nice.
Over here, it's more an Eastern European Slavic culture, compared to where in Spain it's obviously the Latin culture, and there's probably also that some Germans have more the affinity to the Slavic culture, where others have more.
Just kind of strange, because I've always thought Germans are different from Slavic peoples.
Oh wait, we're also different from the Latin people. So.
But yeah, that's true. So at least we are not that dissimilar from each other compared to you and Latin people.
That's an interesting idea. Maybe.
At least we fought in a war, so that's...
we fought with the Latin people as well. Quite a lot of them. That happens when you're neighbors.
And bargains be bargains, and let it be forgotten.
But yeah, we're all Europeans, so we share a culture to a certain degree. So there is obviously differences, but I think even the Latins and the Slavics are closer than they think, compared to something something completely far away, like the Chinese or the Indians, or that is.
Do you think they're here for other reasons? Because I know that you haven't been in Germany for a long time, but I have heard of things happening in Germany, like lots of immigrants coming in the country, and they're not the Turkish type, that we are used to, I guess.
Well, there's a new wave of emigration out of Germany. It hasn't reached critical levels yet.
Right.
I have the suspicions that this is going to change.
Like the worse?
For the worse, yeah. Like more Germans will go out of the country. So Germany has always pushed out the libertarian and even classical liberal-minded people out of the country, because it used to be like a lot of fiefdoms and small countries, and they kind of had their little authoritarian thing going on there.
Right.
Then after it became the empire, it stabilized a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But Germany was always quite autocratic and statist.
Yeah, I noticed that, because all children have to go to state schools. There's no reason why. There's no excuse for not going to a German school, which is probably good for the integration of those kids that came.
Well,
but
probably, yeah. I mean, if you're an immigrant country, maybe that makes sense to kind of get people to mix and to get to know each other, because otherwise you might have this problem that certain societies stay among themselves, but that's not the reason they did this in Germany. So the main reason they did that is because they wanted more soldiers. So that is kind of really the reason that was behind it.
Right.
The reason for the social programs was also just to keep the socialists quiet so they can continue to make their autocratic.
Right.
So that's kind of the main reason behind it. But Germany always pushed out the liberal-minded people, and what's happening right now with all this green energy and this, they even went on to start to censor people, to start to fine people and put them in prison for criticizing politicians. And it is getting to a point where Germany is becoming more and more oppressive. And some people are calling this Schicksalswahl. So it's kind of, it's an election of fate. So right now, this election that's coming up in February, that stuff needs to change in Germany, and if they continue to do this socialist behavior, then we will slowly drift into a more authoritarian society, and our economy will go down into stagnation, which it already is in. And a lot of people, that's kind of my observation, a lot of intelligent, liberal-minded people, they're already, like, what's the name of this podcast? They're already sitting on
the move. On the suitcases.
Basically. They're already on their packed suitcases.
Right.
And they're already watching, where can I go? And from what I hear, also American headhunters are already circling the German market to find the German engineering talent to go to the United States and rebuild their manufacturing over there. So
it's the whole point of being libertarian, and just you want to be competed for by states.
Right.
Okay.
Well, probably we want the state to not exist, but
I mean, yes. But like, if it were to exist, but at least they would have to fight for us. No, we have to fight for them. Isn't it going to create a backlash? I mean,
that people are leaving,
because people, people are getting a little bit more indignant. Becoming more and more unhappy with what the government is doing.
Well, they're actually not happy. So even the socialists are not happy.
Exactly.
Even they are noticing that everything gets more expensive and that the taxes are rising. They're just taking they're just taking their own conclusions out of that. So the conclusions that they take is like, we need to tax the rich even more, and so that's one of their, and it's like abolish private health insurance. That was another one that they said, and they want to feed the bureaucracy even more, and they don't even get to that point where they're starting to think, okay, it's a self-made problem. It's maybe over-regulation, and it may be bureaucracy, and it may be that we got rid of cheap energy and replaced it with expensive energy. So they don't get to that conclusion, but they are just as unhappy. So
do you think Montenegro has a better future than Germany?
In the long term, good question, because even I joined the European Union, and I think they're connected. So Montenegro will go up and Germany will go down. That is certainly the case. But right now Germany still has a better living standard, and that is certainly existing. But it will get closer to each other. Well, I think all of the European Union is basically in the same bed as Germany. So if Germany goes down, then
you're in the same boat.
Everything will go down, and that's certainly the case. Yeah, but I see it as a benefit that you live in a country which has a lower living standard, because stuff is cheaper.
True.
you don't have to pay that high taxes for stuff that you don't really need. So
True.
that's.
I think this is pretty much the only reason why you would get a European passport these days, like an EU passport. You just live there long enough to get the passport and then go somewhere else to enjoy your freedom, because you will be able to just travel all over the world and no one's going to stop you. Which is what we have as a big problem, a huge problem, because there aren't a lot of countries where we can go these days. I hate that this is going to sound like that typical, stereotypical job interview question, but where do you see yourself in a couple of years' time? Is it going to be Germany? Is it going to be Montenegro? Is it going to be somewhere else?
Certainly not Germany. Okay. So that's already one
story.
It's we have some stuff to wrap up there, and I want to leave. So I don't know exactly where to leave, and we have like several countries on the radar for different reasons.
Oh, like what?
So, well, for libertarian reasons, Argentina.
Oh, definitely. Some of us have moved there already, yeah.
Well, for economic reasons, the United States, Switzerland, the typical suspects.
Right.
For living nicely, kind of retiring, but still being able to travel, kind of something like Bulgaria. And here it's more a jack of all trades. You have a mix of the benefits and you have a mix of the negatives, but the big upside is you have this community here and you can build something here and you know you're not alone here. You have some people to rely on and you wouldn't have to establish everything by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It does play a big role. Like it does. It's a major factor for you when choosing the country.
Well,
the community.
In choosing a place to stay for longer. Because if I would continue to basically be on the road with my camper and by myself, then it probably wouldn't matter. Because then I would just drive around and do whatever I'm interested in and just like, okay, let's drive to India or something like, I haven't been to India before, so maybe that's something I would like to do. But if you are a family and if you want to build something for longer, then you probably need a place where you can do that.
Sure.
And if you want to have kids, then it kind of makes sense to have some people that you can rely on and don't have to do everything yourself. So that's what traditionally the big families were doing, right?
Well, now that you've got a family and you expect to settle down, have your priorities changed in life?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Let's say like I value family more. I value community more. It's less about adventure than it used to be.
Do you ever, regret that, or do you ever feel a little bit nostalgic? Oh, those were the days.
Sometimes,
you're still on the move. You're still like,
sure.
Campervan.
I mean, I haven't completely moved to the sedentary lifestyle.
Yes.
But, we all feel nostalgic for kindergarten sometimes, but
that's why we're here.
So would we go back? I mean, realistically not.
No.
So you feel the nostalgia, but I've already done that. It's time for a new chapter in my life.
So you feel optimistic in spite of everything that's going on in the world?
Personally, I feel optimistic for my future. I feel optimistic for certain people's future. I do not feel optimistic for Germany. That's
just a country, and
it's just a country. It's just a place.
In the previous episode, in Russian, we talked about empires, and we were in Herceg Novi, which is up in the north of this country, where lots of countries came and took this place over and sort of started building things that were either they were ousted by other countries, other armies, or by nature itself, because there was an earthquake and everything that they had been building to last would be crushed. So countries come and go, actually, it might not look like it, but retrospectively you could see how the Soviet Union, for example, it was going to last. And not many people actually thought that the Berlin Wall was going to...
Yeah, that went fast.
Yeah, exactly.
It was kind of like they didn't plan this.
Yeah.
And even the politicians that made this decision to open the border wanted to do it slowly and not immediately. So what happened is like the guy who is the speaker for the Central Committee, this Günther Schabowski, I think was his name, he wasn't briefed properly. So some journalist asked him, like, okay, when will this take effect? And he said he was like looking on his papers, didn't see anything, like meines Wissens nach sofort. So it's like, so it means like, according to my knowledge, immediately.
Wow.
So, what happened was then that all the people who saw that immediately went to their cars and went to the border, and all the border guards, they were completely overwhelmed because then suddenly there were like hundreds of people and cars there.
This is a lot of people.
At some point they just opened the border and let people pass, and then people came.
Yeah, what are you going to do about this? Exactly.
And then the guards at the border were completely overwhelmed. They didn't want to shoot. They didn't have no orders, nothing. So, and then people started to come with hammers and tools and just head on the wall. So that's what happened. So that's a very hopeful moment. It turned out it was just a mistake of one guy. So
I'm pretty sure he was sacked the very next day. But then he's now claimed as a hero, I guess.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, like, countries come and go, but you need to take care of yourself and your own, your family, your friends, etc., and just try a better place for you, for yourself, for your kids, for your future,
for your cat,
and for your cat, definitely. Yes. I think it's time to just wrap up the podcast. Thank you for this interesting talk. It's been very, very insightful, very exciting to see you here, and I hope we can kind of catch up soon.
Yeah.
Next time you're around.
Next time I'm around.
Absolutely, sure. So this has been Alf, and I'm Birkin, and this is Na Čemadanech, or On the Move, on suitcases, whatever you call it, and see you next time.
Bye.
The studio thanks Mike Wajnowski, Sergan, and Pavel Shalagin.